My name is Brent. I'm a coach, and I work with people to become self-actualized. The journey of self-actualization moves us in the direction of what you are meant to become. And so I want to share with you a couple things that I've learned about this that will be helpful for you along this path. And I want to start by telling you a story about a massive, terrible spiritual trap that I've been in that I'm now out of. So let's begin. So the trap is this. There is a perceived duality between intention and surrender, we could say, where people usually find themselves on one side or the other. There are certain people who are happy and willing to use their intention all the time. These are more of the masculine types. These are people who are the determiners of their destiny, right? This is a lot of classic self-help. It's like, okay, I will do this, and I'll do it because I will it to be so. I intend, right? And then, of course, you have, on the other hand, surrender, which is more of the philosophy of the Tao Te Ching, or it's the philosophy, there's a lot of Buddhist philosophy in there, which is to abide by what is, to be in the present moment, to make peace with everything, to prioritize peace and wellness and centeredness above all else, to master the patience and the grace that comes from wanting something and not getting it. And this is an essential skill as well. And even as I highlight this, I imagine you could also think of the pathologies that come as a result of being too much on one side or the other. Too much intention, masculinity, puts you under the impression that you're in more control of your life than you are. But if there's a total lack of intention and just lifting up your feet and being carried by the river of life, well, then you're not using your intention and you're not participating in an essential way, and your life is created by default, and that's no good either. So and then even as I lay that out, you might think, well, then what's the solution? Well, the solution is the integration, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So in my case, I came into the world, especially as I entered my 20s, I was happy to use my intention all the time. And this is the principle of manifestation. Manifestation is to imagine the world, the universe, as an extension of your own imagination, and to dialogue with it, to communicate with it, and to put out certain requests or to open up certain spaces or vacancies for things to come in, and then to receive things that way. To do it this way, if you do it a lot and get good at it, it has the feeling of traveling through a dream. Life has more of a dream-like quality than the standard issue life experience that we're used to having and talking about. And so I did a lot of this, and I was very successful at it. I was able to manifest all sorts of situations and money and apartment and shoes. And it was never like a home run all the time forever. And it's not like I always got exactly what I wanted. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes there was pushback. Sometimes there were like little blockages here and there. But enough so that it was a useful skill to cultivate and use all the time. And so that was fine until I had the misfortune of starting to talk about it with other people, either in public, because I've been on this YouTube thing for a long time, but also just, in my friend circles or whatever. I'd talk about, hey, why don't you just get what you want? Why don't you just, manifest it? And I found it was often met with a very strong negative response. So for some people, it kind of created this, what are you talking about? It's not real. It's not true. There's no evidence for it. You show me your proof. No, take it into a laboratory and this kind of thing. And that was sort of a jarring experience for me, because it put me in this position where I had to fight and sort of defend, and I was in no position to do that then. And I still am not now. One of the main reasons is because I have cultivated so much open-mindedness in my life and have cultivated the ability to enter anybody's perspective at all times and view reality from the way anybody views it, that if anybody starts making an argument against even me, I would just collapse my perspective into their perspective and go like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I get it. I can see why you'd say it that way. And then it put me off center. It put me in a place where I couldn't really trust myself because I'd given my authority away to some of these people who had criticized what I was saying and telling me that which was real for me was in fact not real. And just imagine what that's like. I wonder if you have ever gone through that, if you've ever been told something that is real for you is not real. How do you deal with that? It's a very disconcerting experience. But what's good about it is that it's a very strong impetus to find authority in yourself and to discover your ability to say what's true and what's real and to not collapse your perspective if you've gone through life the way I have. And I imagine if you're listening to this and you have. So there was that problem, the validity problem. And then there was this other problem where manifestation had this sort of profane quality about it. And I'll explain. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that manifestation is real. You can use your intention and make something happen. And let's just say the information to do this is available to anybody that has an internet connection. So very, very widely available. And some people take to it, some people don't. Some people have, say, a talent for it, and some people don't. But by and large, it's there and it's real. Well, then what do you do about all of the suffering out in the world? Because the question that was being put to me, and the question that still in a way sort of stumps me, is like, okay, well, what are you saying about the starving children? What are you saying about the people who are caught in suffering? People in Gaza, people in Ukraine, all of the unrest and crisis energy that's here abroad in North America, and people who are going without and people who are poor. Like, Brent, are you just saying that these people should just like manifest? Are you saying that they're not manifesting? Like, what exactly are you saying? And so then there's this sort of profane quality to somehow end up implying that um, people who are suffering because they haven't learned how to manifest, and so it's just a really tricky thing. And so what I learned from that is to stop talking about it. And then along the way, I because of this sense of unfairness and inequality about it, I stopped allowing myself to use these tools. And so then, okay, so carrying that forward, I started diving into the teaching of Matt Kahn and the Tao Te Ching and what I would characterize as the feminine teaching, or like the feminine teachings of these teachers. Because I don't think I can say exactly what Matt Kahn was teaching. All I can say is what I got from it. And perhaps I misinterpreted some of his core teachings. But when he did speak about manifestation, he would talk about how his whenever he would manifest something, his guidance would say, "Oh, no, you didn't manifest it. It was just going to happen anyway." I will pause here just in case you don't know who he is. Matt Kahn is just a spiritual speaker. He's on YouTube. He's very findable, and I really look up to him. It was a real eye opener for me. He speaks a lot about how deep self-love can go, how deep compassion can go, and the power that comes from it. And so I'm a big, big fan of his. I've seen him speak live, and I really hold him in high regard. So that's Matt Kahn. And the Tao Te Ching is an ancient Chinese text, religious text. So anyways, yeah, so he was talking about manifestation, and his guides, his intuition told him that, you didn't really manifest it. It was going to happen anyway. So that was quite a thing for me to hear, and that put me in an interesting situation where what I wanted to do more than anything, was to find the most proper and appropriate way of moving through life in accordance with the Tao. In other words, in accordance with divine flow, with divine timing, wanting to move in as surrendered a state as possible, to attain as high and as integrous a method of existence as possible. That's what and is my goal for moving through life. And so, what I came out with as a result of that teaching was, okay, my job is to show up for life. And my job is to do my best and tie my shoes and clean my bathroom and go to the gym and eat well and take care of my daughter and do these things, work on my business, do all these things, read books. But in the meantime, I'm going to offer to the world whatever I can. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to offer my very, very best to the world. And then I'm going to get back whatever I'm going to get back. And my job, whenever I receive that, is if I receive what I want, to do so with grace, with gratitude. And if I don't get what I want, to receive that with grace, with gratitude. And in particular, to practice skillfully not getting what I want, because to not get what you want is to put you on the path of further growth, right? Because whenever you don't get what you want, there's an impetus in there to grow even more. And I was in it for the growth. It's what I wanted. It's what I do want. Growth is just such a high value for me. Growth is what leads us to self-actualization. This was my thinking. So that's fine. But the problem was that I interpreted that as no longer using my intention. I was no longer offering my intention to the world. And so then, as a result of that, I was doing all this stuff, cleaning, living my life, etc. But then nothing would come as a result. There was a sort of an atrophy that was happening in my life, despite all of the effort I was putting in, where business was starting to atrophy, and my sense of vocation and purpose in the world was getting incredibly stagnant and frustrating. And then what was worse is that I had sort of done this little thing where I had forgotten about all of this, like everything I shared with you here about using intention. And I was just getting more frustrated and adding more effort to the mix, like trying harder and harder, doing more things with business, trying out marketing in different ways, trying different voices, changing my webpage for the millionth time, and nothing was happening. And it wasn't until just recently that I started to realize what the actual problem was. And it came about when I downloaded a book from a different teacher. Her name is Yeshwani, and she's a really awesome mystic teacher who speaks a lot about neurodivergence and its place in the universe. But she put out something on manifestation, a PDF. And as I read it, I realized all at once, oh yeah, I don't actually permit myself to use my ability, to use my power, to use my intention, my wherewithal to create. And so then when I realized that, and I thought about how much I would like to have the permission to use my intention, I then suddenly became aware of everything I had shared with you up until now about how all the reasons why I don't let myself use it. And so then, okay, this is where I'm stuck. So there was a decision that I made, a decision that was made in that moment. This is about 3 weeks ago now from this time of filming, that anything that prevents me from using my intention is no good. It doesn't matter who it came from. It doesn't matter what good intention it came from. It's no good. And what I need now is a psychology that will allow me to use my abilities and my power, my creative ability, my creative power. I have a video that I put out a little while ago that the title is something to do with, when your mind won't let your heart move. And on the thumbnail is a heart and a brain. And I speak about how you can have psychology that doesn't allow you to move forward, psychology that doesn't permit you to move onward and upward on your path. And if you ever run into psychology that prevents that, then it's the psychology that has to go. And why would that be? Well, it would be because the evolutionary journey, like if we're pitting the evolutionary journey against you as a little personality, who do you think is going to win? Evolution wins every time. And evolution isn't like really aggressive or pushy, but evolution has this sort of inexorable movement about it. Like it's an unstoppable force. It moves glacially. It's like slow, steady, and cannot be prevented. And so there's this buildup of friction until the psychology eventually gives way, or the body gives way. So I started investigating and undoing all of the reasons why I didn't have my own permission to use my ability. And this is really tricky. And I'll give you, so check this out. Like, what would you do if you were me? Imagine this, right? Imagine you had the ability to do all this. You had the ability to create a life of plenty and wonder and filled with riches and excitement and just make it like the most amazing life. Imagine you had the ability to do it and you used it, and around you, everybody's suffering in the way I was describing earlier. So there's chaos over here, there's war over here, there's famine over here, there's the political gap over here, there's the concentration of wealth into the wealthy, there's all these problems. And some people are just hanging on by a thread. Maybe your close friends and family are hanging on by a thread, and they say, well, how are you doing? And you say, I'm doing great. Life is just, this is really my year. Life is fantastic for me. Could you allow that? Is there anything wrong with that? This is a real question. It's a real question. Is there anything wrong with having the best year of your life while tons of people out there are having the worst year of their life? And so I really found for the longest time that it actually was inappropriate. And so what I would do is, I exactly what I told you. I wouldn't use my ability, and I would stay in struggle for the camaraderie. But then it was so funny because every once in a while, like one of my friends who was also in struggle with me, we're struggling along the journey, brothers on the journey, so to speak. And then they get this huge win, a huge bump in their salary, and suddenly life is amazing for them. And that would always feel weird for me. It's like, wait, I thought we were doing poverty together. You know what? And it made me realize, okay, no, like I have to choose between which existence I want to be in, because there are disadvantages with both. Because if I'm to create plenty for myself and manifest and fill my life with wonder and riches and opportunity, what that will mean is that I will likely get looked at with as if I've received something that's unfair. And there will be questions of privilege that will come up too. Am I privileged? And how to deal with that? And it's not so nice, right? It's not so nice to be on the receiving end of it. But then, it's a really personal choice. It's like, what kind of reality do you choose to have? And what kind of reality can I have that makes me the greatest boon to humanity? This was my question too. Because, you really could imagine staying in struggle and suffering could be a gift to humanity, to be in struggle and suffering within companionship, in camaraderie with everybody. Maybe that's okay. But then I think now, really, like when you do the arithmetic, it actually is better to use the ability that's available and to be a role model for that, to highlight that. And it won't register for everybody. Not everybody will choose it, but some will. And it's better that way. I think that's a better role to play for humanity. And so that's how I dissolved that particular problem. Anyway, so like that was just one. Like there were like 10 of them. So I had to dissolve them all. There's so many. And then finally, I get to this point now where it's like, okay, now there's permission to use my ability. Now there's permission to manifest, and everything is changing already. New interests, new inquiries for business. My YouTube channel, like the videos that I made, they were outperforming the others that had hitherto that were my most recent videos were doing very, very well. And there's just a new sense of motion and lightness and humor and feeling like myself again. It's so, so cool. So that's the story of that. And so that brings us now to this subject of self-actualization, because now there's a link between self-actualization and manifestation. And it has something to do with the insight that you can't really manifest a life that's not yours. That's one of the boundaries of manifestation and using the power of your intention. But the life that is yours to have, the person you are meant to become, the experience you are meant to have, the circumstances you are meant to have, and the impact that you are meant to have on this planet, you find it not by asking, what should I do? What am I doing wrong? How do I live my life? What am I missing? Because all of these assume there's some external authority out there somewhere. Instead, we tune into our desire. Desire. I suggested in my previous video, in the video is titled, Are We Wrong About Self-Control? That there is wisdom in our desire. And we're not used to thinking about this, right? We're used to being wary of our desire. We see desire as something to be fought off or denied, curtailed, this kind of thing. And I don't think the conversation is quite that simple to say that everything you desire is good for you. It's not like, I'm not suggesting that. But what I do notice is that people who do become really self-actualized. Like, just think of literally any person that to you would resemble a person who has become like a really full and expressed version of themselves. You will probably be looking at somebody who spent a lot of time doing exactly what they want, but not in the form of, say, laziness, but like in the form of creation and exploration and study and just making what they want to make and developing their own particular thing. I want to mention at this juncture that when I was thinking about how myself might become actualized and how I might become a thought leader, which is something I'd really like to become, like somebody who's seen as an expert or an authority on such things, what would that, like, who do I need to become for that? What do I need to learn? What do I need to take in? What sort of school do I need to graduate in order to do that? And it's becoming really starkly clear to me now, extremely clear, that that doesn't exist. That being an expressed version of myself feels exactly like this, exactly like this. Like, I'm used to thinking of my thoughts and my body of work as just, stuff that I've come up with, but maybe not as real and as legitimate as some of these other thinkers over there. And this is precisely the wrong way of thinking about it, isn't it? Right? My body of work is like anybody else's body of work, and there's varying degrees of difference in terms of detail and granularity and so forth. But it's a body of work is just a body of work. A body of thought is just a body of thought. And to be an expert, to be the real deal, to be legitimate, feels like this. This is the funniest thing about imposter syndrome, right? If you've ever experienced imposter syndrome, like the way to come out, like if you want to solve imposter syndrome, you just have to come to terms with the fact that this is what being the real deal feels like. Because you think of yourself like, I can't possibly be the real deal. Like, I'm supposed to like feel differently. No, you just decide that you're not an imposter. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. So becoming that which you're meant to become is another paradox. There's so many paradoxes, right? In that there is a path to becoming that which you're meant to become, and it's knowable, and you can study it and learn about it. And then at the same time, there is no path, and it's not knowable. And why not? Because you've never become yourself before. It'll only become knowable once it's done. Looking back on it, you are in the dark in a room that you've never been in before, figuring out where the walls are. How do you do it? Like, you just kind of fumble around, right? Do you know precisely how to do it? No. Do you kind of know how to do it? Yeah. Are there texts and books that you can read? Yeah. Are they useful? Yeah. Are they going to be perfect for you? No. Right? So it's like it's knowable and it's unknowable. And what you're becoming is knowable and unknowable. One way of doing this is to look at that which you admire, to look at your role models. So I have come into the world with a propensity for taking on role models. Like, I've always had people that I've looked up to, and some of them have stuck around, some of them come and go, some of them have little qualities that I want to embody, and then not so much later. And lately there are four that are really near and dear to my heart. One is Matt Kahn, who I was talking about. Another one is Leo Gura from his YouTube channel, actualized.org. There's a third one is Adyashanti, who is a retired spiritual teacher with a Buddhist background, a Zen background. And the fourth one is Ken Wilber, who created integral theory. And these are people who I look up to and people who I see as fully formed individuals, like totally self-expressed individuals. And yet, despite wanting to emulate all of them, at a certain point, the paths branches off and one goes east and one goes west. And I don't know exactly what to do. One example out of many, many such examples is that two of these thinkers emphasize the cultivation of mind. These are ones who have read hundreds, if not thousands, of complicated, dense philosophical books and have taken all the information in and integrated it In the case of Leo Gura, having done that and also taken a very intense psychedelic drug, 5-MeO-DMT, and integrating it that way and expanding in consciousness that way. Holy smokes, right? And then these other ones over here, Makana and Adyashanti, who lead much more like from a place that's so much more earthy and grounded, very earthy, simple, a willingness to be immediately understood. And it's the type of teaching that it's such a gift to your nervous system and makes you feel at home and makes you feel safe, makes you feel seen and loved, and and guides you into a place of stillness where you can receive what you're looking for in the form of spiritual awareness. And it's extremely life affirming. Whereas, when I think about, say, Leo Gura, there's a lot of admiration, right? But then there's also a sense of obligation of like, oh man, like, holy smokes, if I'm going to do that, I need to get to work and read lots of books. And and so it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And it's this kind of problem that's been hounding me for years. It's been giving me so much trouble. Do I cultivate a whole lot of mind? Is that what I'm doing? Or am I not cultivating mind? Am I doing the opposite? Am I practicing letting go of my need to understand and grasp concepts so that I can just sort of float down to a ground level of truth that's just embodied and it's not even conceptual? And so the answer, of course, is not some sort of milk toast, lukewarm, like right in the middle kind of thing. Ooh, like I'll just read books on Tuesdays and I'll meditate and do this other stuff on Wednesdays and alternate. It's not like that, right? That which I am becoming, my actualization, is a integration. It's a blending and an integration of these in ways that I will discover on a moment by moment basis by following my desire. This is done two ways. One is like there's bumpers on the lane, right? So if I'm veering too much, if I'm getting too heady, it feels excessive and it's not so good. Okay, come back to center. If I'm going too much the other direction, that doesn't feel good either. So it's like, you have to be honest and feel where the excesses are. That's one way. And then the second way is to just follow desire. What do I want? Is there a book that when I open this book, it's just the material is just, it washes over me and I feel like I've been thirsty for it for years and I never knew how much I wanted to learn what I'm about to learn now? Well, then that might mean this is for me, right? So to become that which we are meant to become, it's looking at qualities that we admire, looking at qualities in people that we envy. We can follow our envy, which is sort of a perverted form of desire, but it's still desire nevertheless. Also useful to go through these distinct categories of like, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of interior experience do I want to have of life? Do I want to feel safe? Do I want to feel energized? Do I want to feel creative? Do I want to feel strong? Like this, that kind of thing. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have, and what kind of impact do you want to have? How do you want to be received by the world? To honestly answer these questions will get you there. So I'll close out with a refresher on manifestation, a refresher for those of you who already know, and an instruction for those who have never really grappled with this before. Where think of these qualities that you want to have, this lifestyle you want to have, this experience you want to have. And you can do it from any angle you want. Like you can do it from like from what you have, like how much money you have or how you feel, all of it, none of it. Just choose one. And the key here is to not look at it like, okay, I'm in this reality and I'm trying to make this into another reality, but instead to see the reality that you want to step into as one that already exists right here, right now. You already have that thing. You already are in that relationship. You already have these needs met. It's done right now. And so are you willing to accept that, first of all? Are you willing to accept that it's real, despite the fact that you can't see it and it's not making itself evident in your sensory experience? So that's the first step. And then the next step is to ask, okay, how would I feel How would I feel if it were real? What would it be like? And to enter into the experience of that, the gratitude, the relief that would come as a result. And now the ego is going to fight, right? The mind is going to fight back. And it's going to say, well, there's no way I could believe this. There's no way that I could accept it. And it's okay for the ego to fight back. Just let the ego fight, right? But you just accept that it's already real. It's already done. And give that to yourself as a gift. And this is how you train your radar to gravitate you to that reality, or to gravitate this reality to you. And just make a little routine out of this. And that's it. Let it be simple. Anyways, we did a deep dive into this in the most recent call of the Sovereign Creators Collective. So if you want to go even deeper into this, join that. If you want a one-on-one session, help yourself. You can get one for free. If you have any questions, you want to learn about what might be in store for you individually if we were to work together, we can talk it out, see if it's the right fit for you. And finally, I have a brand new PDF as an opt-in offering on my website. There's a link for that too. 3 links, free offerings. Thank you so much for listening, for being here. Thank you. That's all.